Alright, I'm Jered Flickinger with Future Retro. I'm here at Switchstone's new location demonstrating the Zillion algorithmic sequencer. The ideas are based on the Triadex Muse. We've expanded on those ideas to add much more functionality to it and bring it into the modern day studio, things you'd want to do with it, and add new features that really no other sequencer does. So, here's the Zillion. You've got 4 little hotkeys here. You've got a tempo LED, and then here's your soft touch control that selects the different modes. The different modes are written around the touchpad here, so you can instantly jump to whatever mode you would like to edit. And then editing is as simple as selecting something. You can hold it down and make your edits, and then the edit will apply as soon as you let your finger up. Or you can use the increment decrement buttons to make small adjustments. You can do that while you're holding it, so the audience does not hear those edits until you let go. Or you can continuously edit up and down like so. And so we've got playback mode, stop, play, pause, and step. We can manually step through things. You've got your tempo. Right now we're synced up to a Roland TR-505 as our master clock, so we can't adjust the tempo because that's being remotely controlled by our master clock. We've got the swing mode. Most of these modes have 4 hot selections, so there's different swing values. We can instantly jump between different swing values, for instance. Here's the direction mode. You've got 4 different directions. Every time a loop point is reached, a different direction can be played. Pointing to the right, you're going to be playing forward. Pointing to the left, you're going to be playing backwards. And changing the direction is as simple as just hitting one of the hotkeys. Here's your loop point. You've got 4 different loop points. Free is going to be free running. That means there are no loop points. You'll see a number here with a lowercase b. That is the number of beats it's going to loop. So this would loop for 1/16th note. This would loop for 8/16th notes, and then when you see a number followed by the large B, that's going to be bars. Next mode is transpose. Again, we've got 4 hotkeys. We can set these transpositions to any value we wanted, and then instantly play live the transpose values we've set up. In the scale mode, we've got 16 preset scales here, and then once you go past 16, user scales 17 through 99, users can write whatever they like into those locations. And the user scales can be thought of as simple 8-step sequences. So you do not have to program a typical scale, and scales can also contain more than one of the same pitches as well. For instance, one of our users asked us, I want to create a scale with only 6 notes or whatever. Well, you can fill notes 7 and 8 with a note that is already used in that scale, and that'll kind of give it more likely to be used within the algorithms and playing. The program mode, this is where we edit the user scales. Here, the first number is the actual user scale number that we're going to edit. This number here shows us what note of the scale we're currently editing. You'll see that goes up to 8 and wraps around. And anytime a note is currently being played by the sequencer, you'll see this little asterisk light up. And so while you're playing it, that helps you kind of indicate, oh, that's the note I want to edit. This shows you the pitch that is written for that step of the user scale. We can edit that manually from this front panel control, or if we hook up a MIDI controller keyboard, we can actually just hit a note on the keyboard and that'll write that pitch to this location of the scale. This 4th parameter here is the overall global transpose setting. Just defaults to a value of C2. And again, if we were to select this and have a MIDI keyboard controller hooked up, we could play that MIDI keyboard controller and transpose the overall pattern up and down live. The next mode here is melody. These are your sources that generate the melody using algorithms. You can see some of these numbers here are C's. Those are for counters. Let's go all the way to the bottom. First selection is actually off. That means that source is not going to be used. On just means that that source is going to be a logic 1. The next selection is RND, which is short for random. That will use a random logic source to feed this portion of the algorithm. And then we get into our counters. C.5 is actually a 32nd note counter. 1 would be a 16th note count. 2 would be a 1/8 note count. And on up to, let's see here, we've got counters all the way up to 64 steps. And then you see we've got a value here of S01. That's actually the shift register outputs, and there's going to be 32 different shift register outputs we can select from. I don't remember where that was. I think that was C3. Now let's look at the rhythm mode. The first 2 inputs here, again, are sources for the rhythm algorithm. Just like the melody, velocity, and theme, you have the same sources we just talked about. This input here is actually a value for the rhythm density. It'll change how likely it is that a note off, a note on, or a note sustain will occur. And then in the 4th location, we have different gate modes. There's gate 1, gate 2, and sample and hold. In gate 1, note off, note on, and a note of 100% duration can occur. In gate mode 2, you get all those options plus the addition of a 32nd note occurring. And then in sample and hold mode, you get notes of longer duration that can occur. Velocity is a lot like melody. You've got 4 sources. These four sources feed an algorithm that then will generate MIDI velocity messages, and you can then assign MIDI velocity messages in your external MIDI sound module to control whatever you like, whether it's amplitude or filter cutoff or any parameter. The theme is, again, you've got 4 sources as part of the theme. These sources then feed a logic gates that then feed the input of our shift register, which is here. Normally you're going to see little bars dance across the screen here that'll show you the status of the shift register. And there's 32 little sections here, and that's what your sources as the shift registers 1 through 32 outputs are. Here there are 4 hotkeys that are selecting the logic that is working on these inputs to feed the input of the shift register. And the interesting thing here is the theme can also use shift registers as its source, so it's basically feeding back on itself to create some very interesting results. And up here we've got the MIDI output channels. There are 4 hotkeys, so we could set up 4 different MIDI channels we like and quickly jump between them to play various sounds on different channels. Here we've got the MIDI in, and again you've got 4 selections that you could select what MIDI channel you're taking data in from. And finally we've got the sync mode. You just rotate through here. You can set it to internal sync, sending notes, internal sync, sending notes and clock, external sync, sending notes, and external sync, sending notes and clock. So we're just going to leave it set up for external sync. We're going to go back in the play mode here, and we'll start playback on our TR-505. We are going to be controlling the Access Virus B here just because it's a multi-timbral sound module, and show you some of the features. And let's just give it a try and show you what we can do with this. So let's pick a scale we like, and you can see we're looping at 1 bar here. Direction is playing forward 3 times, and now it's playing backwards. You could go to the transpose mode at any time. And that'll take effect on the next note that happens, so you can create a lot of variations. Here we've got the melody. This is what's controlling what pitch is currently playing if we adjust some of these parameters. You're going to hear variations in what's happening there. Let's set a really short loop point of only 8 steps. And let's keep the direction all going forward. So we've got a random source controlling our octave bit for the melody. Right there we're using 30-second notes to control our octave bit. Here we're using every 16th note the octave's changing. We change this, well, that's as long as our loop point, so if we set our loop point back to 1 bar. So it's very quick to change aspects of the melody without rewriting the entire melody, and you can kind of perform these if you like. Here we've got the theme, and you'll notice since the melody is using a shift register output, if we change this theme, that will then also change the melody that's happening. Shift register, here's activity that's actually going into the shift register. If we select a different logic that's feeding that shift register, you'll hear different results as well. Alright, so we're now in the rhythm mode. Let's go ahead and make some different selections here to see how that's going to change the rhythm. Now I'm using random to kind of randomize that rhythm. Try the different gate types. There you can hear the introduction of 30-second notes. There you hear note sustain. Play with the MIDI output channels, we can actually play. We can select MIDI channels manually like this, just incrementing them. Let's go back into our rhythm and set these both on, so we'll have constant notes. The version I'm showing you right now, or that is actually shipping, is version 1.01. This model is actually 1.02, which adds some new features to the MIDI output channels. This is just a beta version that we're working on, and will be a future OS release. But in this mode, we've added several new features where you can actually use the velocity part here to determine the MIDI output channel. There's velocity 1, here's velocity 2, Here we're using the theme sources to control the MIDI channel. And again, there's random. So let's go back to theme here. Here you can hear some nice repetition and get an idea of what's happening. The neat thing about this is now we can transpose all that's happening. Or we can go select a different scale. We can make some other changes here. Let's change our loop point to something smaller. Now we're using the theme as our MIDI channel to control our MIDI channel. So if we go in here to the theme, make changes or make changes to the shift register, you're going to hear changes to the MIDI channel. Very quick way to just come up with a lot of different variations. Now we could go in here to the theme, or the melody. Make some changes. We could even randomize. Or go change the rhythm a little bit. And let's go back to the theme, make some changes. Now we can go back to the loop point here. You'll notice in our theme we've got some numbers that aren't really evenly divisible, so they can create a longer evolving pattern. So if we remove our loop point here and just put it free running, you're going to hear a longer evolving pattern. And if we go into the direction mode, you'll see it's staying on the same direction because we're not reaching a loop point to advance to the next one, but at any time you can manually play that direction forward or backwards. Let's go back into the output channel. Bring it back to reality. We have not applied any swing to this, so let's go ahead and apply a little bit of swing to that. And again, we can make small adjustments live. Or we can take the swing off, basically. Let's go back into the melody here. external clock, and normally we can re-trigger our playback when we're on the... Normally we can re-trigger our playback, and we can do that even while we're syncing. So if we're, we made adjustments here to our loop point, maybe we're out of sync now a little bit as far as where the note lies and where we should lie, so we can hit play and it'll resync. If we hit the pause button, it'll hold that note wherever it was. If it was playing, it'll sustain that note. If it was off, it'll just keep it off. Alright, so we've changed our setup here a little bit. We've removed the TR505 acting as our master clock. We're now just using the internal clock on the Zillion. We can start to play back on its front panel. Instead, now we've got this MIDI keyboard hooked up to our MIDI input of the Zillion, and we're going to show you how you can manipulate or edit the program scales here. We'll start out just by transposing via MIDI the patterns that the Zillion's generating, and then we'll go in and program our own musical scale here, just to give us an idea of what you can do. Alright, let's go ahead and start the playback. Here's our pattern playing. You'll notice that we've got the global transpose parameter selected. We're playing C2. So I'm just hitting keys at the time I want it to transpose. And transposing is as simple as that. Now, if we wanted to play our musical scale in just an ascending scale, I'm going to set some of these parameters up. Give us that default setting. Okay, so now we're playing just an ascending scale. So there's the major scale. What I'm going to do is select user 17. And now we're going to program user 17. So it's going to play the notes of the scale in order, and you'll see there's one lighting up. So if I go ahead and select pitch 1, it's written at C2. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Instead, I'm going to select what value or what step of the scale we're editing. Let's go edit step 2, and I'm going to write this one as an E. So I increment the step of the scale and go ahead and hit another note on the MIDI keyboard. And let's say I don't like that note, so let's change that. And I'm just going to... So there we have our scale entered in. All we had to do is hit this 8 times and enter note every time. Now we can go to any one of these steps, and that's written at C3. We can go ahead and change that. It's kind of neat that you can edit one of the notes live while the rest remain programmed. Now let's go ahead and go into the melody here and change the order that those notes are playing. And I'm going to set my loop point for 1 bar so we hear all of them. So now we've got some irregular numbers here, and what that tells me is we're actually going to use some of these steps. There you see, step 4 is actually being used twice within that bar, so now I'm going to edit that step of the scale with the MIDI keyboard. Let's go select a different scale, or note of the scale to edit. And I'm going to select a different sound to play. Let's bring our transposition back down. And now I'm just editing steps of the scale, kind of playing them live. Just another way you can perform on the sequencer. We could go in and set up one of these directions to change. Let's do every other one. And let's go back into the programming mode. Sometimes it's fun to set a short loop point. See, it's not using that one, so it's using. And again, we can manually transpose with these. Or since we're in a programming mode, if we just jump over here, we can do the same thing with our MIDI keyboard. And there you have it. So lots of different things you can do with this and different ways you can approach creating patterns and sequences. And our best advice is just to experiment with it and come up with your own techniques. But we do want to encourage you to play the sequence live. You know, this product requires you to interact with it. It's not like a regular sequencer where you sit down and think about everything you want it to do and just play that into it. Instead, you need to interact with it and let it inspire you, and then take it where you want to go with it. So thanks for watching, and thanks for Switched On for having us.